Today's mindful moment, packed with insights but designed to fit into your busy life. One deep dive at a time. Okay, so think about this for a second. In 2021 in the U.S., for every 100,000 births, almost 33 mothers died.
Wow.
Yeah, that is more than 10 times higher than in a lot of other developed countries, even though we spend way more on healthcare here.
That's pretty shocking.
Yeah. So today, we're going to look at the experiences of a Michigan State Senator, Mallory McMorrow. Her book is called Hate Won't Win.
Interesting.
And we're not focusing on politics, but more on like the positive parts of her journey.
Okay.
How she found her voice and her power, even with all the political stuff, and her own personal milestones.
I see.
Her story is really compelling, I think, especially in terms of like navigating tough situations and finding your own agency. It kind of goes beyond just politics.
Right. It's about those moments where you kind of find your place in the world and try to make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. And before we get into it, if you guys are familiar with our YouTube channel where we do AI audiobook analysis,
Right.
you might like our Mindful Moments segment. We explore how these personal stories can help us understand things better. So today our goal is to pull out some key insights about finding your own power, dealing with obstacles, and like really engaging with the world around you. And it's all based on Mallory McMorrow's story.
Awesome. I'm ready.
So where does her journey really start?
Well, she takes us back to when she first got into politics, back in 2017 when she ran for the Michigan State Senate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and what's really striking is how unlikely her win was. She was a total newcomer going up against this established guy from a big political family in a district that usually votes against her party.
Yeah, and her campaign launch was pretty low-key, right?
Mm.
She announced her candidacy to only like 11 people in this kind of dingy gazebo.
Uh-huh, really?
Yeah, only 3 of them weren't even her family. It was like damp and the paint was peeling. She even talks about how you're supposed to have this huge, diverse, enthusiastic crowd for these events.
Right, the optics are important.
Totally. But get this, despite that super humble start, she actually won.
That's amazing. So that must have been a huge turning point for her, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's such a contrast between this unexpected win and what she went through after. The fact that she became the youngest woman ever elected to the Michigan Senate is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But then what happened?
So for the next 4 years, every single bill she introduced, like almost 50 of them, covering all kinds of issues from women's rights to the environment, none of them even got a hearing.
Wow, that must have been so frustrating.
Totally. She talks about feeling defeated and burned out. Like, what's the point?
Yeah, I can imagine. And this was all happening during a pandemic too, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And there were those tense armed protests at the state capitol. Remember those kind of foreshadowed January 6th?
Right.
And she was getting all these threats and crazy conspiracy theories thrown at her. It was a lot.
It sounds like she was up against some serious opposition.
Definitely. And that period of adversity is really important to understand, like how she eventually found her voice. It shows how resilient she had to be to keep going when things seemed impossible.
Right. It's like her commitment, despite all that, really becomes a key part of her story.
And she's clear that it wasn't like this sudden transformation.
Yeah.
There were these quieter moments before the speech, which we'll get to, that shaped her thinking. One thing that really stuck with me was how her mom created this like informal community center in their house.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like a welcoming space for anyone who needed it.
It's really sweet. It says a lot about the values she grew up with. Community, taking care of others, creating a space where everyone feels welcome. It makes you think about how those early experiences, even seemingly small ones, can build the foundation for connecting with and advocating for a whole community.
Right, like her mom would have neighbors over all the time and take care of other kids, even invited a guy from the grocery store who had a disability to dinner. So those little things.
Yeah, those human moments are really powerful. And what about her husband, Ray? What role did he play in all of this?
So they met at an auto show, which is kind of funny.
Uh-huh, okay.
And then it was a little awkward for a bit before they reconnected at Comic-Con.
Okay, that's cute.
But the important thing is that he always believed in her, even when she was still figuring things out.
Oh, that's nice.
Like she mentioned wanting to write a children's book years before she ever thought about running for office. And he bought the website domain for her.
Wow, he sounds like a keeper.
Yeah, he really was a constant source of support. It shows how important it is to have people in your life who believe in you, even when you doubt yourself.
Totally. And it sounds like his actions, like buying the domain and a laptop, really gave her the confidence to take those leaps of faith, like running for office.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of leaps of faith, after the 2016 election, that was a major turning point for her.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
She talks about the shock and anger she felt seeing all the protests. But she didn't just get mad. She channeled that energy.
How so?
She wrote this powerful post on social media telling people to use their anger to become agents of change.
That's awesome.
And then get this, she literally Googled how to run for office.
I love that. That's so relatable, you know? It's that feeling of needing to do something, anything, when you're faced with these huge events. It shows that sometimes finding your path starts with a simple, almost impulsive act, driven by something you really believe in.
Right. And that social media post, she only shared it with like 15 people on her personal page.
Wow.
But it resonated so much that other people started sharing it.
Yeah,
It just goes to show the power of being authentic and speaking your truth.
absolutely. So what was it actually like for her to run for office?
Well, she quickly learned that it's not glamorous at all. It's a real grind, especially financially.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
She gives this vivid account of all the costs involved: hiring staff, buying tons of yard signs, getting access to voter databases. The constant fundraising was a big challenge.
Yeah, the financial side of campaigns is something most people don't really think about.
Right. She
Yeah.
kind of pulls back the curtain on that process and shows how much work it takes just to get started.
So true.
And she points out that even candidates who raise a ton of money sometimes still lose. It's not just about the money.
Interesting.
And then there was this attack mailer from the Republican Party. It was this weird die-cut thing shaped like an old suitcase with fake travel stickers on it.
Ha, what?
And they used a swimsuit photo of her from social media. It was really personal and negative,
Ouch.
but it totally backfired.
Really? How so?
It was supposed to make her look bad, but it actually made some voters curious and even amused.
That's hilarious.
She was out canvassing, and this guy even joked about it, asking where she'd lived in California. It became this unexpected conversation starter.
Wow, so it actually helped her connect with people in a way.
Exactly.
Huh.
And she stresses how important that door-to-door canvassing is. You know, having those face-to-face conversations with voters.
Yeah, those personal interactions are so crucial.
She had some really moving encounters, like meeting with these 15-year-olds who wanted to know her plans on gun violence. She says those personal moments meant more than any viral thing online.
That makes sense. It's about really connecting with people on a human level.
Totally.
Mm.
And speaking of those online moments, she talks about how campaigns are obsessed with fundraising goals and door-knocking quotas, and it makes you feel like you're never doing enough.
Oh, yeah, I can relate to that feeling like the goalposts are always moving.
Right. But she realized she needed to shift her focus from just the numbers to actually getting to know the people in her district
Yeah,
and sharing their stories.
that's a great point. It's
Yeah.
about finding the meaning in the work itself, not just chasing numbers.
For sure. This time wasn't all sunshine and roses, though.
Yeah.
She had this really disturbing encounter with another state senator during orientation, Pete Lucido.
Oh, no.
He made these totally inappropriate comments about her. It was awful.
Ugh, I hate that.
Yeah, she ended up filing a sexual harassment complaint against him.
Good for her.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of courage, especially when you're new and, there could be backlash. It also says a lot about the challenges women face in professional settings, even when they're in positions of power.
Right. And the response from the Senate HR office was really telling.
What do you mean?
They seemed more worried about protecting the majority party than actually addressing her concerns.
That's so messed up.
Then another senator, Lana Sice, sent out this fundraising email basically accusing anyone who supports talking about gender and sexual orientation in schools of being groomers.
Wow, that's a serious accusation.
Yeah, and she specifically targeted McMorrow. It was a huge turning point, the thing that led to the speech.
I see. That's not just a political disagreement. That's a personal attack on her character.
Exactly. She was like in disbelief and furious at first. She had this high school visit scheduled that day, and she talks about this weird disconnect between getting ready to talk to students about doing meaningful work and dealing with this hateful smear.
It must have been so hard to process all of that.
But she still went to the school.
That's amazing. It shows how dedicated she is to her constituents and that she won't be silenced by this kind of stuff. It's a powerful example of pushing through personal challenges to do what you need to do.
Exactly. And then came the speech.
Okay, tell me everything.
So she walks into the Senate chamber, and in this moment that so many people connected with, she defends herself.
Wow.
She says, "I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom."
Wow.
It was like she was reclaiming her identity and directly challenging the narrative they were trying to create about her.
Right. It wasn't just what she said, but how she said it. The emotion, the clarity of her values. It resonated with people from all walks of life.
Absolutely. And the response was huge. She got messages from all over the country, even the world, thanking her for giving them hope and strength.
Mm.
Some people even save the speech and listen to it when they needed a boost. It shows how one person finding their voice can have this ripple effect way beyond their own situation.
That's so powerful. It shows the power of authenticity and conviction, and the fact that she was targeted and that ended up giving her an even stronger voice and connecting her with a wider audience. That's incredible.
Yeah, those challenges can actually be the catalyst for finding your strength and influence.
Totally.
And it wasn't just the big viral moments either. She talks about these smaller, more personal connections too, like her friendship with this volunteer named Grace from her first campaign.
Oh, tell me about Grace.
So Grace had different political views, but she was this super dedicated supporter, and she'd have these really tough conversations with voters, often bridging the gap with her understanding.
That's really cool. It shows how you can connect with people and find common ground, even if you don't agree on everything. It's those individual interactions that can make a real difference.
Exactly. And that brings us to what I think is a key message here. Finding your voice and your power often comes from these unexpected moments and the relationships you build.
Right. It's not about having all the answers or a perfect plan. It's about being willing to step up, engage with the world, and find your strength in those connections, even when things are tough.
Totally. So as we wrap up this look at Mallory McMorrow's story, I think the main takeaway is that finding your voice and power often comes from those unexpected moments and the people we meet along the way. Just like the speech and all the support it got, it shows how much impact one person can have and how we can create change, even when our efforts seem small.
I love that. So now what?
Well, if you enjoyed this, we encourage you to subscribe to the show for more insightful conversations like this one. And if you know someone who might be interested in McMorrow's story, share it with them. You can also buy her book, Hate Won't Win, through the link in the show notes.
Awesome. I'll definitely check that out.
And one last thing to think about. Who do you influence in your life? And are you really aware of your own power to make your little corner of the world better?
That's a good question.
Think about how your own experiences can lead to more engagement and positive change.
I will. Thanks for that.
Of course. This is a great conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Me too. Until next time.
See ya.